live togglings. All right. All right, I've got 10 o'clock. Shall we go ahead and start the recording of the live stream, Judy?
Yes, please.
All right. I'm recording on my end. David, whenever you're ready, we can go live, and I'll go ahead and let folks in now.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 27th Annual WaterWise Landscape Tour. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. We're going to let our last few people in, and then we'll get our program started. Thank you. Okay, it's a couple minutes after 10, and we're going to go ahead and get our program started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Katie Evans, and I will be your MC this morning for today's 27th Annual WaterWise Landscape Tour. I work for the City of Dallas Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability as a climate coordinator, and it is my pleasure to be part of this long-standing program, which is in its 27th year. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Microphones and video options are not available for the audience today. So if you have questions, please do utilize the chat feature. And while we will do our best to answer every question, unfortunately, time is limited today. I also want to let you all know that this event is also live streaming on YouTube. So feel free to check that out if you missed something or if you want to revisit this program after. So our outdoor environment is so important, and we've really found that to be especially true during this pandemic. I know most of us are spending more time at home, and if you're like me, sometimes outdoor adventure just means a walk in your own backyard. And now with more people moving into the area, combined with the impacts of climate change, that means it's going to take all of us working together to save our precious resources, and that includes water. Today's program is all about that, and it's the reason why Dallas Water Utilities and our department have kept it going for the past 27 years. This morning, you'll be hearing from a handful of local experts who will be sharing some of their secrets, tips, and tricks with us, so stay tuned. I mean, what is dried molasses, and who makes it anyway? I think we're going to find out today. So for this year's 27th Annual WaterWise Landscape Tour, we are again hosting all of it virtually. But we did keep its traditional format with a contest and submission period and entries judged by a professional panel. You can view all the winners after today's program on our website at www.savedallaswater.com. In just a short while, we are going to announce the winners. We may even get to hear from a couple of them live on air. I know I can't wait to learn who they are. That's right. I don't even know who the winners are yet. I also heard there is a surprise non-judged category winner as well. One last note as we get things rolling. Our program today includes a special giveaway available to City of Dallas residents. So be sure to look for a survey link at the end of our program, because the first 75 people who take it before 2 p.m. will get the chance to receive a 1-gallon plant and a bag of compost. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce the director of our department, Sheila Delgado. Sheila has been with the City of Dallas for 26 years, serving in a variety of positions, including Assistant Director in Dallas Water Utilities, and now as our Interim Director. She is dedicated to serving the residents of this vibrant city. Please join me in welcoming Interim Director of the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, Ms. Sheila Delgado. Sheila, it looks like you're still on mute. There you go.
There we go. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the kind introduction, Katie. I am so pleased to welcome everyone who has logged into our Zoom for the 27th Annual Wastewater Landscape Tour, sponsored by Dallas Water Utilities. You are all for a great treat this morning. Our special guests will share best practices for creating home landscapes that are not only beautiful and functional, but that also save our most precious natural resource, water. Did you know that poorly managed landscapes are one of the biggest water wasters? Every year, hundreds of millions of gallons of water run off our lawns and into storm drains and carry with them the pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers that too many of us have become dependent upon. But the good news is that there is something we can do about it. And today, we will learn the best solutions that work with our local soil, climate, and weather, and not against them. Whether you are a new homeowner who doesn't know the difference between San Agustin grass and buffalo grass, or if you're a skilled gardener who embraces lantana, drip irrigation, crushed granite, today's sections offer something for everyone. So take notes. You can also log into the City of Dallas YouTube channel and watch the recording once again later. After our special guest speakers, you'll get the chance to hear from folks just like you and I, Dallas residents who have made the commitment to creating and maintaining amazing and functional landscapes that not only save water, but that are also great examples of just how awesome xeriscape and other water-saving plantings and designs can be. Plus, they are extremely beneficial to the planet. This is our second year hosting the annual WaterWise Landscape Tour virtually. So we are especially grateful to this year's winners for sharing their gardens with us. We also thank our judges, the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability staff, and Dallas Water Utilities for all they've done to make this possible today. So, like we said, you're in for a treat. So get ready, take notes, and jot down your questions because saving water is everybody's job. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Sheila. We are excited to introduce our first speaker this morning. And so when we asked our first presenter to kick off today's tour, she was a little reluctant, but as we listened to her speak about one of her passions, we felt she was definitely the right person to lead us off. She loves dirt. We are honored and pleased to have Lori Nesbitt with us today. She is an experienced landscape architect, and she is as passionate about saving water as she is about getting the best dirt out of life. Lori Nesbitt has been a licensed and active landscape architect for 29 years. She is highly skilled in the area of space planning and design, and Lori uses native and drought-tolerant plants while also incorporating features into her designs that protect stormwater and require less potable water without sacrificing beauty. Lori has a master's degree in landscape architecture from Texas A&M University and a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Stephen F. Austin University. She is a dedicated volunteer for St. Mark's School, a Boy Scout camp master, and has helped 3 Eagle Scouts direct their projects towards functional and sustainable installations. Lori has volunteered her time at the Dallas Arboretum as a docent and for garden maintenance. Please join me in welcoming Lori to the virtual podium for her presentation, Healthy Roots Make Healthy Landscapes. Lori?
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. Hi, thanks for having me. I design residential garden spaces for a living. Afterwards, I go away and the homeowner takes care of it. Most people want low maintenance landscapes, but as we know, plants do need care. Whether you do it yourself or hire a landscape company, I have some suggestions that may ultimately reduce your maintenance and your water bill and keep your plants looking good. Slide. This is a view of a space I was asked to improve. Slide. And here it is 3 years after it was installed. The homeowner has done a great job of following the soil maintenance and watering suggestions I'll be going over today. So more specifically, we will be talking about how to feed and how to water your roots to get more out of your entire landscape. Slide. The photos in this section will show you landscapes where the additives listed have been applied following a calendar as to when to apply them. The calendar shows applications 5 times during the growing season and twice during the spring, once in the summer and twice in the fall. These ingredients are gold for roots. It's kind of a long list, so don't feel like you have to be a perfectionist though. But I've highlighted the primary reasons and the benefits for each ingredient so you can appreciate why they are on the list. And please don't forget your grass. Everything here is super good for grass, and they should definitely be included when treating your entire landscape. The calendars on the following slides will mention all but the bottom 2 ingredients. These aren't on the calendar because you can add them anytime. I mainly add expanded shale during the bed prep phase, but it's great whenever you plant, even just 1 plant. I will also occasionally throw out some into the existing grass and beds just whenever I feel like it. Again, the great thing about organic is you don't have to be a perfectionist. Earthworm castings, maybe the only reason not to use this regularly is because it is somewhat expensive. Slide. So the calendar starts with spring. It's explained on this slide, but corn gluten meal is something I really want to point out specifically here. It's the broadleaf weed preventative, applied 2 weeks before any of the other additives because it's important that you apply it to catch the weed seeds before they germinate. The fertilizer and additives come afterwards to encourage the growth you want. Definitely apply it to your grass. And I say here to apply it to your beds with discretion because corn gluten meal doesn't know the difference between a receding perennial you want and one you consider a weed. Now, unfortunately, this is pretty stinky stuff and the yellow color kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, but even so, it's worth it. And both of those things do fade. Your grassy weeds will need to be pulled by hand, but keep in mind, the healthier your soil is, the thicker your grass will grow and your plants will grow, so weeds will not be that big of a problem. Slide. Before I learned about corn gluten meal, I would take forever to dig weeds out of these rocks. I would venture to guess maybe the time spent has been reduced by 95% just using corn gluten meal. Slide. So 2 weeks after the weed preventative, you do add the other additives, including organic fertilizer. On this list, I've included all the individual ingredients you can get, but I do cheat and I buy the ready-made organic fertilizer. I do make sure it's a good one though, like maybe Texas Tea, which I've used, or I've heard Ladybug is also good. Often I do get a generic nursery brand as long as it is organic and from a good nursery. Ready-made may not have all, but they will have several of these ingredients listed. If you have a specific need, then apply the specific ingredient. Slide. On the spring calendar, mulch is listed to apply in late February. But if you're a purist, just let the leaves be your mulch. They have the best nutrients anyway. But many prefer a neat and tidy look, and bark mulch definitely does give a great finished look to your beds. If you adjust your application to when the leaves fall, then there's no reason why you can't have the best of both worlds by leaving some of the leaves and adding your bark mulch on top. In the spring, I'm kind of thinking about those live oak leaves, so you might want to compost some of those and leave some of them. My clients tell me that I love mulch, but look at all the things that it does. Of course I love it. Be sure to get organic or Texas native and either hardwood or cedar bark mulch, which are the best for around here. One thing that drives me crazy is when I see mulch up against the stems or trunks or crowns of the plants. That's one possible way to make a plant rot. Just keep the mulch about 4 inches away from wherever the plant is coming out of the ground. Slide. Liquid seaweed and manure are the final 2 ingredients on the spring calendar. Here's a recipe of how to make the foliar spray. There are ready-made brands out there too. Again, think about organic when you buy. This is a great root stimulator and bud stimulator. And manure, well, the last ingredient, as you can see, it has it all. Slide. This is what to do in June. Besides the foliar spray, which is also applied in June, one of the things that is extremely beneficial to add to your soil is organic compost. Just a really thin layer, not only to your beds, but yes, to your lawn, add nutrients, help to retain moisture, and to break up your clay. Dried molasses feeds the good bugs, and we definitely need the good bugs in our soil. Lava sand improves aeration. Texas green sand improves moisture retention. You'll probably find some of these ingredients in ready-made organic fertilizers as well. Slide. In the fall, there's another 2 applications of the corn gluten meal, followed by 2 weeks later with the organic fertilizer. In September, you want to give your soil a boost with all those yummy ingredients we've already talked about. And of course, in early November, add the finishing touches with mulch. Or you can wait a bit for the mulch if you want to put a layer on top of your fallen leaves. Slide. Now that we've done everything we can do to give the roots the best food available, let's talk about how to give them the best drink. One of my first jobs was teaching homeowners how to use their irrigation systems more effectively for their grass. This was for the city of Austin, and people there were running their systems 3 or more times a week and just basically splashing water on top of the grass by running each zone for maybe 5 to 15 minutes. They were basically just developing a very shallow root system, and they couldn't figure out why their grass looked so bad. Watering can be tricky. Some people have a real feel for it, others don't. That's why I say it's not an exact science, but I'm going to give you some guidelines and perhaps a completely different way of thinking how you water. In the long run, I know it will reduce how much you water. Slide. This is a photo of a retaining wall that failed. The reason why I put it in here is because if you look at the top, you see grass, right? Now look down below and follow along the vertical earth wall. those are grass roots. I just think it's a great visual to show you just how deep grass roots can grow. And that's what I'm going to talk about now, grass, and how do we get deep grass roots? Slide. So I don't know this for a fact, but based on my experience with the city of Austin, I'm guessing our watering restrictions here in Dallas of 2 days per week came into play because some people were watering every day if they could, which besides being wasteful and expensive, it's definitely not the way to grow healthy, deep roots. With the 2 day per week restriction, most homeowners I speak with think they need to use both of these days or their plants are going to die. This restriction is not meant as a guideline of how much you need to water. You can actually water a lot fewer days if, on the days you do water, you do it in a way that will promote deep root growth. This can be accomplished by, number one, giving your soil the nutrients we've gone over, and number two, by watering deeply only as needed, not on a set time schedule. So many use their irrigation systems as a set it and forget it tool. That's when it's set twice per week to irrigate on assigned days, no matter what. You see it going off in the middle of the rainstorm, in the middle of the day, or with water running down the street. The irrigation system is a great way of making sure all parts of your landscape gets water, but it's not there to think for you. Slide. So this is the second main thing I wanted to share with you today. How to water so the roots will grow deeper, so you don't have to water as often. The whole point is to get the water to penetrate deep into the ground. This year, I irrigated a large property a total of 5 times from spring to fall. This is how I did it. Look at this photo. Do you see footprints in the grass? The grass is laying flat from walking across it because it's dehydrated. Now, it's not good to dehydrate plants very often, but for this to work, you kind of have to dehydrate it a little bit initially to get the roots to grow. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out. First, turn off your irrigation system. The next time you think you need to water, walk across your grass. You don't necessarily need to see a full footprint, but at least you want the grass to not bounce back as vigorously when you walk on it. Or another way to tell is if you look at the blades in the middle of the afternoon and you see they are curling a little, or if you can tell that when your grass has lost its luster and has dulled out a bit, these are all ways your grass is telling you it's time to water on your next watering day. Slide. Now it's time to implement what I call the 3 rounds and wait system. This slide shows you what you don't want to see. I will speak as if we all have irrigation systems, but I personally don't have one. So you can follow the same method with manual sprinklers too. What this means is on your next watering day, water a minimum of 3 rounds, even better if it's 4 or 5 rounds of your irrigation zones. Then wait to irrigate again only when the grass doesn't bounce back. So what I mean is don't necessarily on your very next assigned, not necessarily on your very next assigned watering day. Specifically, the first round is just to moisten the soil, maybe 5 minutes. Let it soak in. This will prep the soil to get it to take in more water the next round. The next round will be for a little longer, maybe 10 minutes. If you see runoffs, such as you see in these pictures, reduce the time for that round. You want the water to soak in. How many times have you gone down the street and seen water wasting away like this? Runoff means the water isn't penetrating. Follow up with at least 2 more rounds, increasing the time for each. And as long as your heads aren't irrigating the concrete and there's no runoff, well, the water is penetrating a bit deeper each time. Once you've completed the 3, or like I said, even more rounds, that is considered 1 day's irrigation. And don't irrigate again until you see the grass not bouncing back when you walk across it. The number of days between irrigation days will grow as the roots grow deeper. Remember, I said I irrigated a property 5 times from spring until today. This is what happened actually. Beginning in the spring of 2020, I did everything I just told you with improving the soil and this watering system on a lawn that had for years been on traditional weed and feed fertilizer and a twice-a-week irrigation schedule. That year in 2020, I irrigated twice in the spring, 6 times in the summer, and once in the fall for a total of 9 times. This year, same yard, same method. It was watered once in the spring, twice during the summer, and so far twice this fall, a total of 5 times. I watered it when it was needed around the watering days we had. We had a decent amount of scattered rain days, but because I irrigated deeply, allowing the water to penetrate, I was able to work with Mother Nature instead of in spite of her. I know for a fact I irrigated less than what occurred in the rest of the neighborhood. As a bonus, at the beginning of 2020, the yard was full of weeds. This year, the weeds are all but gone, and the grass looks just as green as any other lawn, getting watered twice per week. Slide. So have grass if you want it. Play football on it, roll around in it, run barefoot through it, but don't water it so often. And if you don't need the grass, make a bigger planting bed. Hardy established plants can be watered at the same way, and they can be watered even less than grass. At the very least, if you reduce your irrigation to twice a month, that's a significant drop from twice a week. Slide. So there is an exception to the watering system, to this watering system. That is the first year after a plant is planted. And that's what I do for a living, is put in new plants. Slide. This garden was put in just last April, and while eventually it will be able to follow the 3 rounds and wait system, for now and up to a year, a whole new garden like this, or just one plant, needs to be watered regularly for the first 2 weeks, and then checked regularly for the first year. And that goes for grass as well. The first 2 weeks, watering fresh new grass is definitely important. This homeowner had it easy. If you remember, it rained a lot in May, so she didn't have to do anything. But if it doesn't rain for those first 2 weeks, pretend each plant is still in its nursery container and water it as if you were making sure the container is thoroughly moistened. Don't just splash water on the top of the plant, and don't drown it in a flood. Depending on the time of the year and if they are in the sun or the shade, it can mean you are doing this twice a week or daily. Large trees and large shrubs will need hand watering, sometimes for up to a year after installation. Really, if you get those roots established during that first year, remember the first slide I showed you? Slide. For everything, besides most annuals, you might water once or twice a month at the most. Annuals in general, and specifically these caladiums in this photo, do need more, but why water your entire landscape if only your annuals need the water? Slide. I have the hardest time getting my clients to do this. Not sure if you need to water your beds? Simply sticking your finger in the dirt will tell you so much information. Really feel the dirt. Is it mucky wet? Is it dry as a bone, or is it cool and moist? I know there are meters available, but for me, the finger test really is better. I also think about how humid or dry it's been, how much rain we've had, if the plant is in the sun or the shade, and what the leaves look like. But when in doubt, feel the soil. Slide. Every plant is different, but you can help them achieve their ideal root depth. Slide. By giving them good food. Slide. By watering slowly and completely thoroughly, then backing off and letting the soil dry out. Slide. by giving new plants a head start and helping them transition from the bubble they were in the nursery to your house. Slide. By thinking about what the weather is like, where the plant is planted, and what their special needs might be. Slide. By looking at the leaves. Slide. But sometimes you really just have to get down and dirty, bite the bullet, and stick your finger in the soil to see if it's wet or dry. Slide. Low maintenance is definitely not no maintenance, but doing these things will ultimately really simplify your maintenance and reduce how much water you use on your landscape. Healthy roots make healthy and beautiful landscapes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lori. That was a great presentation. I know I learned a lot. Do we have any questions for Lori in the chat? Don't forget, this is a great opportunity to ask questions of some local experts. So please don't hesitate to put those in the chat. Do we have any for Lori? It looks like we have one. What is the best way to start with augmenting the soil? Is it the sand?
Really, if you just follow that calendar, if you wanted to start today, you could actually just probably put on the corn gluten meal in November, and then a couple of weeks later add the organic fertilizer. And then next spring, go ahead and start that calendar and just follow the calendar as I put it.
Great, thank you. We have a question about pavers from Christina. Does Lori have suggestions for installation of pavers, i.e. using concrete or not?
You don't really have to. You can put like decomposed granite underneath them, or a lot of times my guys put in a road base and then decomposed granite that helps level it really well. And that way it keeps everything permeable.
Great, thank you. And I think we have time for just one more question. Let's see, what can we do to prevent bad roots or bad grass, those are both in quotes, from popping up in the good grass or from the good grass?
Well, like I said, is as you give your grass and your roots the good food, that's going to increase the grass to grow thicker. Like I said, too, the corn gluten meal only affects the broadleaf weeds, and the grass weeds do have to be hand pulled for a while. But as it grows thicker, as your regular grass grows thicker, you won't have that problem quite as much.
Great, thank you. And to those who are asking for Lori's information and that calendar, this presentation is available in the recording that will be posted. So you will be able to access all of this information as well as Lori's contact information. So thank you for all of the questions. I'm sorry we won't have time to get to all of them. We're going to move on to our next presenter. Thank you so much, Lori. I know we're all virtually giving you a round of applause.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. And now I'm going to introduce our next presenter. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome and introduce Amanda Griffin from Smart Outdoor Services for her presentation entitled Winter Irrigation Tips. Amanda is accomplished. I'm sure she's licensed as well, but Amanda is accomplished in the fields of irrigation and teaching. She is, here we go, a licensed Texas irrigator with 2 certifications in landscape irrigation from the International Irrigation Association. She is a certified irrigation contractor and a certified landscape irrigation auditor. She is also an EPA WaterSense partner and has worked in the green industry for almost 20 years. Amanda Griffin is president of Smart Outdoor Services based in Garland, Texas. The company focuses on consumer education, irrigation renovation, and comprehensive water management. She is also the former executive director of the Texas Turf Irrigation Association, serving on that board for the Dallas Irrigation Association. She currently serves as board chairperson for Farmers Assisting Returning Military, a nonprofit dedicated to agricultural therapy and training for returning military personnel. This group has been featured on our Grow With Us series, which airs each Monday at noon in partnership with the Dallas Public Library's Seed Library. Before entering the irrigation world, Amanda was a certified science teacher and also taught public speaking and theater arts. She has taught classes for end users and horticulture staff of the Dallas Arboretum, in addition to teaching irrigation basics for DABS horticulture therapy. Amanda has built a reputation of honesty, doing what is right instead of what is easy, and going the extra mile in both work and volunteerism. Let's welcome Amanda Griffin to the virtual podium. Amanda?
Thank you so much, Katie. That was a beautiful introduction. I'm shocked at my own self. So let's get into my presentation today. Can you guys see my screen? Winter irrigation tips? Maybe not yet. Now you can see it, I bet.
Yes, it is up and we can see it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, I'm honored to be here again. I was speaker last year at the WaterWise convention, so to speak, and I'm pleased to be back again to offer some irrigation tips for the cool weather. And I want to thank Lori, our keynote speaker. She and I just speak the same language. I was just clapping for all of her slides. Her advice was so wonderful and right on. So I can tell that we would be great friends because she is recommending many of the things I'm going to touch on today as well. So I'm happy to be able to expand on the wonderful watering tips that she offered. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about watering in the winter. So let's get started. There's my bio, but Katie covered it so completely. We're just going to skip right on. It is almost winter. Temperatures are beginning to drop. Thank goodness. It's always such a beautiful respite from the North Texas summer to feel those cool temperatures beginning. So what do we do about our irrigation systems in the winter? Here's some tips for you. Tip number one, just don't water in the winter. That's all we've got. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you later. No, I'm only kidding. This is a tip that I want to share with you, but you can see my little asterisk there in my tip. Many yards may not need to be additionally watered with your irrigation system in the winter. Here's a couple of things to think about as you're assessing whether or not that's the right tip for you. If you have plants that mostly just go dormant in the winter, you don't overseed with winter rye, just watch for those plants to begin to slow down with the cooling temperatures and the shorter days. We have a lot of clients who just turn their sprinklers off around November and they don't turn it back on till late February, early March. That could very well work for you. Just watch your landscape through the winter. If you do turn your system completely off, watch for any plant stress. A lot of times bedding plants may need a drink once in a while, but if we have a nice precipitation in our winter weather, sometimes you don't need to water at all. Most of your plants are slowing down their metabolism. They're kind of going to sleep for the winter, that they're not working as hard as they are in the summer. So you may not need to water at all. One tip that I'd like to let people know is to check around your foundation. Some people have designated zones around their house to water their foundation areas. A lot of other people just depend on their irrigation system or their manual watering system to keep that soil kind of sucked up against the edge of your foundation. So if you do turn your system completely off in the winter, you might just check around your foundation every once in a while. If your soils get too dry, especially in your turf areas where it's a lot less likely to be amended soil, our blackland prairie kind of gumbo soil heaves and shrinks. So if your soil gets really, really dry, you might see a space between your soil and your foundation. If you see that, you may want to give that area a drink or a watering cycle just to keep that soil moist and around your foundation. I'm not a foundation expert, but we get questions all the time about watering around a foundation or for a foundation. And so that's the only foundation tip that I give. If you've got that big space around your house, you may want to water a little more to keep that soil sucked up against your foundation. There are a couple of incentives encouraging you not to water in the winter. If you don't do winter ryegrass, you just let your St. Augustine or your Bermuda go dormant in the winter, you can save water all year long because your winter water wastewater consumption charges are based on your water consumption in the months December, January, February, and March. So the less you water in those months, the lower your wastewater charges that accompany your water consumption charges are. So on your water bill, you'll get the line item that tells how many gallons of water you use, and you have a charge related to that. And then you've got another line item that's your wastewater charges. You can lower that price for the entire remainder of the year by reducing your water use in December, January, February, and March. So don't water in the winter is a tip for some people. It's not necessarily a tip for everyone, and it's not my only tip. So we're going to move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is if you do water in the winter, cut way, way back. It's disheartening when I go to the home of a new client and ask them about their watering schedule, and they just say, "Oh, I don't know. My landscape guy sets that up," or, "Oh, we moved in this house 3 years ago and we've never touched the box in the garage." It's just tragic when that happens because you need so less water in the winter that you've got to make those adjustments to your schedule. Most irrigation controllers have a seasonal adjust item on the controller dial that allows you to just turn every zone down a percentage. So if you go out to your controller in your garage today and you turn that dial to seasonal adjust, it will probably say 100%. You can turn it back to 50%, 40%. In December and January, we usually set ours at 20%. So you can adjust that every month. Don't forget to go back and adjust it back up when things start warming up. But that's an easy way that you don't have to think about, well, how many minutes should I take off of this zone and that zone? You can just turn that global adjustment setting down to a lower percentage rate, and then it will just cut your runtime minutes by that percentage. So if you were watering 5 minutes and you put it on 50%, it's going to water 2.5 minutes on that particular runtime. So the reasons we need to cut back our water consumption or sprinkle irrigation time in the winter is there's a lot less evaporation happening. So the water that you're applying to your soil and your mulch and your plants isn't disappearing into the air as quickly as it does when it's 110 degrees in Dallas. Your plant metabolism is slower for most plants in the winter, so they're not uptaking as much water as they are in the summer when they're just growing their heads off. And keep in mind that with the sun changing in the horizon in our winter months, your shade changes. So you may have a lot more shade on a bed or in a turf area in the winter than you have in the summer, or vice versa. So it pays to kind of walk around your yard, in the winter to see where those shady areas are. If you have a place that's full sun in the summertime, but gets a lot more shade in the winter, you may want to turn that zone down even more than you do your other global adjustments. So just like Lori said, there's no set it and forget it on your irrigation controller. You're the best measurement or the best judge of the changes that you need to make in your system. And nothing can replace you or your landscape maintenance professional or your licensed irrigator walking around and doing an inspection to see what changes you need to make in that schedule. Tip number 3 is water later in the day when temperatures are higher. Dallas Water Utilities lifts its ban on watering between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. from November through March. So the reason you want to possibly move your start times to later in the day is if we get into really cold temperatures overnight, your rain and freeze sensor may keep your system from running at 2 a.m. when it's 80 degrees in the summertime. So you may think that you're watering, but your lawn is looking really dry. And that's just because overnight it may be hitting 38, 37 degrees at your rain freeze sensor, and your system won't be allowed to water. So normally we move our start times to later in the day in areas where we know that we need to water in the winter. So you're not as limited with that 10 to 6 restriction. Now, that's not an excuse to just water all day long willy-nilly, but if you normally water at midnight and 2 and 3 and 4, midnight 2 and 3 may be frozen. Your rain and freeze sensor may be tripped during that time. So you may think about moving those start times to later in the day. And just remember that your start times are when that first zone is going to come on. And so if you want to follow Lori's guidelines of watering 3, 4, or 5 times, which I highly recommend because it will reduce runoff and it encourages that water to travel deeper and deeper. I always tell people the first watering cycle breaks that hydrophobic barrier that's created in the soil in between water cycles. So that first water cycle kind of breaks that barrier. That second water cycle pushes that water deeper. And then the third one just has a beautiful water highway to travel deeper into the soil and encourage those roots to grow deeper. So if you're going to do that, remember when you set your start time on your irrigation controller, it's going to run however many minutes you've programmed for that zone at that start time, and at the next start time, and at the next start time. So if you have 5 minutes on a zone and you have 3 start times, you're going to water 15 minutes. So keep that in mind. A lot of times people get confused about what a start time is and what a run time. Your start time will run the entire program at that designated start time. Oops. Oh, somehow I went right back to the beginning. Let's try to find her. Okay, tip number 4. Use the winter time to make improvements to your system. Fall and winter are the best times to do this, actually. The consequences of having your system potentially down for a few days are much reduced because it's not 300 degrees and everything's not going to die if you can't water it for a few days. So it's not fatal to plant life to take your system down, to rework heads or make changes to your zones in the wintertime. Irrigators are typically not as busy in the winter. So, a lot of times you can maybe get a better price for a project if you wait and do it in the fall or winter when we're not all running around with our hair on fire fixing leaks to save plant life from the North Texas heat. If you're interested in getting an irrigation evaluation for your system from the city of Dallas, that's a free service. And those irrigation evaluators, at least last time I visited with one of them, they aren't as busy in the fall and winter either. So summer is the time everyone's thinking about their yard. And so those evaluators are really busy in the summer, but fall and winter are actually better times to book those because it's not as hot and they're not as busy. So with the weather not being so dire, not being 100 degrees when you walk out there, you can really take the time and spend some time in your yard, run the system and watch it and see areas where you may have deficiencies that you want to address before spring comes around. And then when you do those things, your system will be ready for a flawless startup when it warms up enough to turn your system back on or increase your run times. Other things that you can do to make improvements to your system are the same things that I preach about every time I do a presentation like this. Replacing your irrigation heads with pressure regulated heads with a check valve installed. This will retain water in the line between watering cycles, and it will make the performance throughout the entire zone more consistent. So that's a good upgrade to do in the winter time. Adding pressure regulation to your system with a pressure regulating master valve on the system is a great improvement to make to your system. A master valve kills water to your main line when your system isn't running. So if you get a leak, the water's not just going to run all night long and give you that big water bill as a surprise the next month. So those master valves are useful if you do have damage to your system sometime in the future, but also they can be adjustable to help reduce the pressure in your system. So just to improve performance. Those irrigation components are designed to work within a specific pressure range, and many houses have more pressure than those components are designed to work under. So higher pressure means the water droplets are smaller, more susceptible to wind drift, and less likely to make it to the soil level where we want that water to go so it can benefit your plants the most. Okay, tip number 5. I love to show this picture because most people don't really understand how a rain and freeze sensor works. So this image is really powerful to me. So you can see that's the inside of a rain freeze sensor. I don't know what brand this is. Most rain freeze sensors are made the same, whether they're super fancy and accompany a weather station or whether they're just the cheapest one that you can buy at the irrigation store or hardware store to put on your system. Inside that rain and freeze sensor, you can see those little slices of basically like cork material. They're called hydroscopic discs, but it's a fancy way to say slices of wine cork, basically. So the way it works, when those get wet and fat, they stop the connection of the wiring to stop your system from watering. When they dry back out and shrink back down, the wire connection is restored and your system can run. So it's not an exact science, first of all, and those corks get hot and cold and wet and dry and wet and dry, and they get really hot in our North Texas summers. So the rain and freeze sensors don't last as long as we would like. It's just a fact in the industry that rain and freeze sensors need to be replaced periodically. So if you've never replaced yours, or you don't know when yours was last replaced, it's probably time to replace it. They're very inexpensive to replace. You can buy them yourself and replace them, or you can contact your licensed irrigator to replace them. And that's a good way to make sure that you don't get a freeze incident if your system goes off when it's cold, and it will shut it off in rain as well. So those little wine corks just get dried out and stop working with a very short amount of time. Okay, prepare for a big freeze. Now, you know, a few years ago, I might go, you know, the North Texas winter's not that bad. And so you can do a lot of gardening in the winter, but we all learned last year what a big freeze is really about. So prepare for the big freeze before it arrives. If you know we're going to get really, really cold weather or an extended amount of cold weather, I would recommend that you run a water cycle just to moisturize your soil. The water molecules in the soil molecules and in and around the roots of the plants kind of work as a heat sump to keep those plants from desiccating and freezing in freezing temperatures. So it's a little bit like an insulating layer. If your soils are moist when we go into a freezing situation, you're less likely to have landscape damage for a big freeze. Now, if we have a big, horrible 4-day sub-zero freeze like we had last year, this may not save your landscape, but it will certainly do for average freezes like we normally have in North Texas. Also, prepare for emergencies. Find where your irrigation water shutoff is so that if you do get a freezing situation in your system, you'll be able to quickly turn it off without letting water run down the street and make an ice rink on your cul-de-sac. So verify those shutoffs work. A lot of times they're buried, they're impacted, or they're rusty, or they're broken. So this is my my famous little diagram of a typical irrigation system that I use a whole lot. So this is your house. Usually in the front of your house, or maybe in the back of your alley, you've got a water meter. Your system will also have a backflow prevention device just downstream from your water meter. And then some systems have that master valve I was talking about, or they have a shutoff valve just downstream from your backflow prevention device. All three of these are potential shutoff locations. You should be able to kill your irrigation system by turning off one of the handles on your backflow device, or by turning off the ball valve or the gate valve downstream from your backflow device. If you turn off your water at your water meter, you could potentially turn it off to your entire house. So it's better to learn where these shutoffs are before you need them, so that if you do need them, you can just run out and shut them right down. This is a diagram of a double check assembly. This is your backflow prevention device. It's on every system in the city of Dallas, unless your system's just ancient. And even then, any work that you have on your system, you're going to get one of these because it's Texas law to have one. So you can see it's got two shutoffs here. Either one of those will shut off water to the system. And I wanted to show this picture because it shows you what a double check looks like. And it shows you one handle that's turned in the off position and one handle that's turned in the on position. So it's just like the water would run. If the handle is parallel with the pipe, the water can run through it. If the handle is perpendicular to the pipe, it's going to stop water. So in this example, this valve is shut off, or this handle is in the off position, and this handle is in the on position. You can see it's in a valve box here. It would normally have a big green lid on top of it at your house. And a lot of times if you open this at your house, it could be filled with mud or years of sediment. So it's nice to dig that out so that you can see this component before it's a freezy, rainy day when you need to turn your system off. Tip number 7, don't abandon your water conservation methods. Keep your multiple start times. Lori talked about how important those are. I can't stress enough how that is one of the biggest water savers, getting water where it needs to go by utilizing those multiple start times. I added this mulch and leaf item, and I'm so glad because Lori talked about it as well. Consider leaving your leaves or adding mulch for insulation to your system. Just the way mulch insulates your system from the heat in the summer, it can insulate your plants in the winter from the cold. And it also builds those good organisms in your soil. The leaves do and the mulch does. So consider leaving those fallen leaves in place or raking them up and putting them in your flower beds to use as an insulation layer. And I always tell people to leave your grass blades long, even as you're heading into the winter. You don't want to scalp that that turf and leave it susceptible to soil exposure to the cold weather. Leave those grass blades long, let it go to sleep with a nice long blade on it. You can always trim it back in the spring when it's really starting to grow. So don't lose sight of trying to save water even in the winter. Okay, tip number 8, these are just a couple of funny photos I wanted to show you. This is an ice sculpture created by a sprinkler head that was run in freezing temperatures. So tip number 8 is definitely don't do this. But all joking aside, irrigation running when it's freezing or right before or after a freeze can cause a hazardous situation on sidewalks and roads. So you want to be really careful to either turn your system off or have that functioning rain freeze sensor. Here's another cool shot. Now, this is not a landscape sprinkler system. It's a fire suppression system, but the consequences are the same or worse. So that's a huge ice falling down from the fire escape there. Okay, if anyone has questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. And otherwise, thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I think we have time for just one quick question, and we've got one from Simon. What are your watering tips for winters when we are in drought, particularly for evergreens and native succulents?
Well, evergreens and succulents in particular are pretty hardy. So they're used to being in those tough environmental conditions. So I would say just keep an eye on them. You want to, if we're in a drought and we're not getting natural precipitation, you want to supplement with irrigation water. You just don't want to water too much. Evergreens, you especially don't want to water too much. You don't want them to begin rotting in the root systems, and succulents as well. More succulents are killed by overwatering than underwatering. So just keeping an eye on those and watching for the first signs of stress. So like Lori was talking about with the turf, you can watch those succulents and the pines for evidence of stress, and then give them a nice long drink. Otherwise, they're probably going to be okay. If they're established and mature, they can probably survive that drought a lot better than your other landscaping plants can.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you to Simon for the question. And thank you, Amanda. I learned a lot as someone who lives in a condo. I learned a lot for one day when I have a yard to take care of. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate your time. And we're going to move now to our next presenter. So far, Amanda has helped us prepare for the winter watering season. Lori's taught us secrets to improve our soil. And now we need to talk about plants. And who better to start this segment than the Daniel Cunningham, or as you may know him, the Texas Plant Guy. That's right, he loves all things green, or really any color of plant. Daniel is co-founder and leading horticulture expert of Rooted In, which offers a holistic science-based approach to meeting the demands of an ever-changing Texas landscape through education, conservation, and community collaboration. Daniel specializes in edible gardens, native pollinator-friendly landscapes, rainwater harvesting systems, and efficient irrigation design. He also conducts more than 100 programs each year to share his knowledge with businesses and homeowners. You may even recognize him from television, as he often appears as a special contributor on NBC channels, in addition to regular segments on local Fox, ABC, and CBS affiliates. Please join me in welcoming Daniel Cunningham for his presentation, Plants Everyone Can Fall For. Daniel?
Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you again for everyone for joining us this morning. So we want to dig into just some specific plants that I love, and I think there's a lot of benefits to the plant material that we can put in our landscapes, creating healthy landscapes that increase our home's value. They can reduce our utility bills, both helping to cool our homes in the summer as well as keep our homes warm in the winter. They can also provide ecosystem services like cleaning and filtering the air locally in our neighborhoods, as well as controlling flooding and erosion that I know we've seen in many of our neighborhoods in recent years. Now, we've already, in this program, dug deeper into design aspects. We're going to focus on plant selection here on the next section. But as you're designing your landscape, you also may want to come up with an irrigation plan as well. And we had some great tips on irrigation earlier, as well as installing your hardscape, or really just anything in the landscape that is not plant material. We also want to make sure that we do spend time with soil preparation, whether you have heavy clays or sandy soils. And then plant installation, making sure that we install these plants in the proper way to set yourself up for success. Now, we've already echoed the importance of mulch and reducing weeds and holding on to moisture, which is fantastic. And then you want to make sure that you do come up with that watering schedule that we've already visited. But we want to really focus on this next section on the design and the plant selection. And one of my biggest things that we want when we're selecting the right plant is to overcome the challenges that we're seeing gardening in Texas, whether that's extreme weather that many folks have already talked about, extreme temperatures in the summer with our record high 113 degrees here in the city of Dallas, a record low -8 degrees that was set in 1899. We just recently saw some similar temperatures. We also want to select native and adapted plants that will overcome the challenges with pesky weeds and insect pests, as well as the challenges that we see with water. With sometimes in Dallas, we could see as much as 60 inches of rainfall a year. In other years, we see as little as 18. So
I'm
one way
sorry.
I like.
Hey, Daniel, I'm so sorry. Some people are having a little bit of trouble hearing you. I don't know if the microphone is maybe a little too far away, but we have a couple comments that it's a little tough to hear. So just as a heads up.
Okay, let's see if that works better. Turned it up just a little bit. I do apologize for that, Katie. Thank you for the heads up.
Sure, thank you.
The case for natives, natives can help us overcome those challenges. And those are plants that are adapted to Texas, our soils, our extreme weather. Plus, they provide food and shelter for native bees, butterflies, and birds, which is going to help save you time and money. Now, our fall blooming plants that I want to talk about here next have, incredible benefits, and they look great. They help add color, and they provide nectar to our monarchs, which have just started visiting us here over the past week. One of those plants that I absolutely love is our fall aster. Now, this is a nice subshrub that gets about 3 foot tall or 3 foot wide or so. It's evergreen, so it does provide year-round interest, but just this time of year, it explodes with these beautiful purple blooms, works well in full sun to part shade. Another great perennial plant subshrub is the Texas rock rose. Now, this one is what we would call a semi-evergreen. I've had this one blooming in my own landscape in as late as December. So it has a long blooming season, blooming right now. Again, gets about 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, thrives in full sun to part shade. Another great plant, this one they call butterfly crack because they are so attracted to it. One of the premier nectar sources for not only our monarchs, but a number of our other pollinators is the Gregg's mistflower. We see some monarchs and some viceroy butterflies, some queen butterflies on it right now. But I sat in my backyard with my daughter. I have a 2-year-old yesterday in our Adirondack chairs and just amongst the mistflower, watch the monarch butterflies fly around. Now, in addition to the Gregg's mistflower, there's also the white mistflower, which has similar clusters of blooms that pop up in white, but these have a little bit of a shorter blooming season. These only bloom in the fall about the same time that the monarch migration is happening, so blooms just in time to give them a little boost of nectar to get them further south into Mexico. If you're looking for a true shrub, this is a great evergreen shrub that has beautiful blooms, long blooms for us, works in sun to part shade, and those are the evergreen dwarf abelias. So many of our pollinators, like our swallowtails, love these, and then the beautiful blooms are great for us to enjoy as well. Some other great blooming plants are our salvias, our true sages. The Henry Dulberg blue salvia is a great long blooming perennial. We've also got the hot lips, the hybrid salvia, and then the coral autumn sage or autumn salvia is a great one as well. Each one of these is going to have a long blooming season to provide a pop of color in your landscape. If we're looking for a shrub for full shade, it's really hard to beat the American beautyberry, which this time of year puts clusters of berries along its stem, bright magenta. In addition to just adding ornamental interest, these also will provide a food source for many of our songbirds throughout the fall and winter season, which is a fantastic option. If you're looking for a more low grower kind of evergreen to provide fall and winter interest, the right skullcap is a great border plant that you can kind of fit as a skirt around maybe some of your taller plants. Works great along patios and pathways. With a long blooming season, summer, spring into fall, this one does well in full sun with well draining soils. Now, I wanted to also dig into our evergreens that provide winter interest, looking great year round, and also serving as a backdrop for some of our other plants. Some of them also have the potential to add color and provide food and shelter for wildlife. One of those is the Yaupon holly. And Yaupon holly, I think a lot of people are already familiar with, but it comes in both tree forms and shrub forms. And these are all going to be evergreen, providing year-round interest, whether it's in a weeping form, the Scarlet's Peak, which is the more columnar, tall, skinny form, or the micron, which is very compact, only getting about 2 feet by 2 feet. The female versions of the Yaupon hollies are going to produce bright red berries, which again add color and winter interest in addition to providing food for our songbirds. Another great shrub to tree that I love for evergreen interest is the dwarf wax myrtle. Comes in both tree and shrub form and provides food for wildlife as well as just nice deep green evergreen color. Another great way to provide evergreen interest with really cool structure and form is with the softleaf yuccas. These thrive in full sun to pretty much part to full shade. You also may want to check out the dwarf palmettos, which can get about 4 feet by 4 feet. Again, great structure and form with these. Add a contrast with different leaf textures that you may see in your landscape. Carolina cherry laurel is a great evergreen that is very versatile, thriving in full sun to full shade. It's more of a large shrub than it is a tree, but beautiful blooms in the spring and some great fruit for wildlife in the fall and winter. Now, one of my favorite semi-evergreen to evergreen plants for fall interest is going to be the oak leaf hydrangea. And the reason is its bright red leaves that just look fantastic, and it really only dies back when we get extreme cool temperatures like we normally see in January. I also would encourage folks to incorporate different ornamental grasses for adding contrast and color and texture and form. The Gulf muleys, white cloud muley, pine muleys are great for adding movement and color and texture, as well as check out the other ornamental grasses like blue grama, blonde ambition, the little munchkin, little blue stem, as well as Dallas blues switchgrass. I know we went through those fast, but we have a lot more information on our website. You can find that at rootedin.com. And one of those resources is going to be our top 100 plants for North Texas, where you can search for plants based on their height, their width, their season of bloom, their color of bloom, the wildlife they attract, what sunlight needs they have. And so feel free to check out that resource at your leisure. And if we have time for any questions, I would love to take those now.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was fascinating and pretty to watch. Does anyone have any questions for the Texas Plant Guy? Feel free to enter those in the chat. We have a couple of minutes to take questions. Just wait for some to come in. Can you tell us more about your plant boxes?
Yeah, so we do partner with the city of Dallas in the spring and the fall with kind of what we call garden in a box or garden kits. Everybody who orders those gets 24 plants, 3 designs, as well as a garden maintenance guide, basically everything you need to know to be successful in the garden. And we're already planning those boxes that will be available in the spring. We'll have a Texas native box as well as an edible landscape box to boot.
Right, thank you so much. And we have another question. What sort of animals eat, and I'm going to try to say this, Bromus catharticus or rescue grass?
So that is one of our invasive Eurasian grasses. A lot of our rescue grass kind of is an invasive or increaser that comes through the landscapes. And so there are some birds that eat those, but we would probably deter that because when they eat the seeds and then they deposit those out the back end, they start to spread into native areas, and they can disrupt our native grasses that we would actually like to encourage. So one way to reduce the rescue grass is just to pull it up before it goes to seed. If it's in a landscape bed, mulch it heavy so we could discourage those for becoming invasive in other areas.
Great, thank you. And one more question. What is your favorite ground cover for full shade?
Yeah, there's several. One of my favorites is going to be frog fruit. It thrives in wet areas, dry areas, full sun to full shade. It can handle some foot traffic. You can keep it kind of lower growing by mowing it a couple times a year. It has beautiful blooms that are fantastic for wildlife. You also may want to try some of the sedges. Texas sedge is a great one. It has a grass-like feel. But as a nice ground cover. Then another non-native that I really like is ajuga. It can be kind of a little bit of an aggressive spreader, but provides beautiful blooms for many of our pollinators, as well as some pretty leaves and foliage to look at.
Great, thank you so much for answering the questions and for your wonderful presentation, and to everyone who asked questions. I'm sure we're all giving you, like before, a virtual round of applause. And I want to take this time now to introduce our next speaker, another member of the Rooted In team, Patrick Dickinson. He has over 20 years of experience in landscape design and management, working both in Texas government agencies and private companies. Patrick designs creative outdoor living spaces that are innovative, beautiful, and easy to maintain, always, of course, with water efficiency in mind. Patrick shares his love and knowledge of landscape design by conducting CEU training for landscape architects, licensed irrigators, as well as nurserymen and rainwater harvesting specialists. Patrick received his bachelor's degree in horticulture with an emphasis in business and design from Tarleton State University. He is a TCEQ licensed irrigator, rainwater harvesting specialist, and board member of the Dallas Irrigation Association. You might recognize him from television as well, where he has been featured on Channel 8. Now let's hear from Patrick as he shares his special message, Design Tips to Grow On. Welcome, Patrick. Looks like we're just getting things going. Thank you for your patience. It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting if there wasn't a glitch. Thanks for bearing with us. And don't forget to put your questions in the chat when you have them. We're excited to have a little break coming up soon with a special guest. So
there he is. And remember to visit SaveDallasWater.com.
Yes. Thank you, Sheila. And there's Patrick, who will be delivering us a special message. I believe it's a pre-recorded video. And I think we're just having some trouble getting that up and running. So thank you for your patience. There will be a survey at the end of this presentation. Don't forget, if you take the survey, you have an opportunity to receive a 1-gallon plant for Dallas residents, as well as a bag of compost. So really exciting. We appreciate all of your input and feedback. And we also, as Sheila mentioned, be sure to visit savedallaswater.com for tips on saving water in the city of Dallas. If you're not a Dallas resident and you are attending today's program, you can still shoot us an email, and we'll have that email up on the screen at the end of the program for a special thank you gift. So there's something for everybody. So be sure to take that survey or email us. Are we able to pull up that video, or do we need to skip ahead?
Katie, this is the voice in the cloud. It will be up shortly.
Wonderful, wonderful. Glad to hear it. And that email that I mentioned, if you are not a Dallas resident, is Green Dallas. I just had it pulled up. greendallas@cityhall.com. So shoot us an email. If you don't live in Dallas, we still love you, and we'll send you a token of our appreciation. So feel free to shoot us an email there. And while we wait for the video to pull up, I'm also going to plug our program, the Climate Plan. If you're interested in learning more about CCAP, visit dallasclimateaction.com to learn about our comprehensive environmental and climate action plan, which has a whole sector about saving water and protecting our water resources. And so we work very closely with Dallas Water Utilities and our local stakeholders to protect and preserve water in the city of Dallas underneath our city climate plan as well. So just a few more seconds and we will have that presentation up and running. Thank you again for your patience. And I see we have a question in the chat. The survey link will be posted at the end of this presentation. We'll also put that link in the chat for you all. And the recording will be available on YouTube as well. Anyone else has, oh, looks like we are back up and running. I believe our wonderful technical person's screen froze. And so here we go. And here is our video from Patrick. Thank you for your patience.
All right, everyone, we get to talk about my favorite subject and about design. What to do in the fall, what to do in the winter. Well, now is the time to start planning. Start planning for spring and fall. And also, if you're wanting year-round interest, meaning going into these fall and winter months, you need to start looking for that fall interest, whether it be berries, whether it be evergreen, whether it be fall foliage on tree leaves like Japanese maples, whatever it may be. Now is the time to start paying attention. So this time of year is the time of year that, you know, we normally get questions about, you know, what is that grass or something that's blooming on the side of the highway? And it's Gulf muhly grass, and there's a white muhly grass. So I call those kind of like the encore to our season. A lot of them bloom in the fall, right before we start, the temperatures start, you know, getting colder for the winter time and things start going dormant. So we're already seeing some of the pink Gulf muhly and even the white muhly blooming right now. And just like you see behind me in my own garden, things like the Japanese maples. I have quite a few Japanese maples for fall interest in my garden because I really love that fall color, and that's what I want. So I have both the weeping and the standard weeping Japanese maples in my garden. Now, another thing that people always have interest of, especially going into those fall and winter months, are things that have berries. The Yaupon hollies are some of those. So you can see right here, the Yaupon hollies are starting to put on their berries. Most of them are going to be pretty green right now, like you see on the stem, but they will turn red. There's some red right in front of the lens right there. This is the time to really start paying attention because a lot of these hollies don't always put on berries. and that would be the male holly. You have to have the female holly on Yaupon hollies, on possum hollies, to have those berries on there. So if you're looking for that fall color, going into just the beautiful berries, you have to make sure you buy the female when it comes to that. I'm going to flip my screen here on this. Maybe if it lets me. I guess it's not going to let me, because I want to show you that some of those last minute bloomers, pink Turk's cap, that's from our Go and Grow box, and that's we're really excited about the popularity of those Go and Grow boxes, so keep an eye out for those in the spring. You can see here this Japanese maple is already starting to turn some of that red color. This particular one turns a really, really vibrant crimson orange color. So that's where I get a lot of that fall color. But I'm on my side garden, which is a shade garden right now. You can see the sun's starting to change, so I do get a little bit of sun here late in the season. But one of the things I wanted to show you that's also a popular fall winter plant is the beautyberry. Beautyberry, you have to pardon my stacked chairs, I'm working on some projects. Beautyberry especially has this beautiful purple blue berry on it. There is a white berry as well, white beautyberry, which one of our clients just gave us some that we're really excited about. But that beautyberry can kind of be kind of like a last food source for a lot of our birds going into the fall and winter, or when they don't have much left on there. I'm kind of seeing as I walk through some of the squirrels and what they've done in my gardens. Some of the maintenance tips and things that you can do as well. My oak leaf hydrangea, like you see right here, is done blooming. Now would be the time to cut off that old bloom. Or if you wanted to try to reduce it. So on oak leaf hydrangeas, you really want to make sure you're pruning those right after they bloom. Some of the other things that I really enjoy in my garden is I love some of the different grasses, both sedges, things like that. So here you can see I've got some black mondo grass right here. So that gives me some really cool interest through the fall and winter when everything else is kind of going dormant. I have it actually right here in front of dwarf Japanese maple that's going to be changing here pretty soon as well. A lot of my plants on this side of the garden were new plantings, so they're starting to make a pretty good comeback after the freeze. I'm really excited about that. Look at this red color that's starting to take shape. So the other thing is looking into trees. You know, a lot of trees that are best to be planted in the fall, in the winter, when they don't have their leaves and they're going dormant. And that is so they have less stress put on them. One of my favorites is the redbud. So the redbud tree, when you plant this, when it's lost all its leaves, see those big heart-shaped leaves? This particular one is called the Rising Sun Redbud. You get all those beautiful fuchsia color blooms in the spring. And then this one, when it's putting out new growth all the way through the spring into early summer, the leaves can be a yellow to orange, chartreuse color, real attractive plant. You can see here, I'll kind of finish up my shot here with my dissectum Japanese maples. This one's called Crimson Queen, and it turns a really beautiful crimson kind of orange color in the fall. So now's the time, if you're looking for that season-long, year-long interest, even going into the fall and winter, now's the time to start paying attention to what you see that you like and include that in your landscape. Don't forget to mix textures and colors so you have a lot of definition. Y'all have a good one and enjoy your tour today.
All right, thank you so much from Patrick for that pre-recorded message. Lots of lovely plants right in his own backyard. So thank you so much. Before we move on to the next part of our program, we're going to take a brief stretch break with a very special guest. I am excited to introduce you all to Do, our water conservation mascot. So as we get that video up and ready to go, I want to invite you all, get on up out of your chairs, go ahead and stand up, or if you're at a standing desk like me, keep standing up. And we're going to have Do show us some smooth moves to get your blood flowing. So here is Do.
goofy goober. I'm a goofy goober. You're a goofy goober. We're all goofy goobers. Goofy, goofy, goober, goober. Put your toys away. Well, all I gotta say when you tell me not to play, I say no way. No way, no, 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 no way. I'm a kid, you say. When you say I'm a kid, I say it again. And then I say thank you very much. So if you're thinking that you'd like to be like me, go ahead, try. The kid inside will set you free. I'm a goofy goober. You're a goofy goober. We're all goofy goobers. I'm a goofy goober. You're a goofy goober.
All right, thank you, Do. That was unexpected. Thank you so much for leading us through that quick break. I'm sure we were all happy to watch Do perform his dance moves for us. And so thank you for that. Now is the moment we have all been waiting for. We are pleased to announce the winners showcase. But first, we need to announce the winners of this year's 27th annual Waterwise Landscape Tour. Contestants participated in 3 major categories: Best Small Landscape, Best Large Landscape, and Best Kitchen or Edible Garden. The final category is selected by the judges and is for Best of Show. In addition, we have a special non-judged category and award today, the Fan Favorite Award. This award honors gardeners who have participated in this event for many years and are devoted to it. They are a fan favorite of everyone and of the environment because they care so much about it. To announce this year's winners, I'd like to welcome back Sheila Delgado. Sheila?
Well, hello, everyone. As promised, we had great information, and I do think that our speakers delivered just that. Now, I am so honored and happy to announce this year's winners. I wish to again thank you, the judges, for their time, impressive knowledge of Waterwise landscapes, and for their love of the natural world around us. Thank you also to all the contestants. Everything in your home outdoor environment looked amazing. And I want to mention that the winners will receive a Natural River Rock stepping stone this year with your signs announcing that they won and what they won. They can display those signs for their neighborhoods and families and friends to see, and perhaps they will slow down a bit and help celebrate the hard work it takes to maintain beautiful landscapes throughout the year. Now, here are this year's winners. For Best Small Landscape, we have Carolyn Manning. Congratulations. And I believe Carolyn is with us today. And Carolyn, if you're listening, can you please turn on your microphone and camera? Let's see if Carolyn can join us. Not sure if Caroline has been able to join us. I will have to ask our technical staff if they can see Caroline or not.
Sheila, I don't see her name on the list of participants. So maybe if she
Okay.
pops up, we can invite her back, but I don't see her at the
Okay.
moment.
Okay, so let's move forward then. If she comes back, let me know, and we will go back to her. But if we can go ahead and maybe show the pictures for Caroline landscape. There we go. Yes. And probably one more. Mhm. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Let's go then to Best Kitchen or Edible Garden. And the winner is Sophie Crash. Congratulations to Sophie Crash. I think I saw Sophie earlier before. If she's here with us, that's great, and we can hear from her. Let's maybe show her video first, and let's see if Sophie is ready later on to give us a few words. But we have a video from her garden. That was awesome video. If you haven't already, you will want to plant some vegetables after looking at this healthy plants and delicious meals that Sophie prepared from her fruits and vegetable garden.
It looks like she is on the line. Sophie, or if you want to unmute Sheila, she is on the line. So
Okay, great. So here we have Sophie.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for joining us, and thank you
Awesome.
for doing this video.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on and for the award. Obviously, I was focusing very much after the winter reset on growing edibles. And I think somebody asked in the chat, did I start from seed or purchase starters naturally or locally? A little bit of both. I did a lot of seeds and I purchased several starters, including those peppers were definitely starts. I've never ever grown peppers before and it was very successful. I had so many, I had to give them away. So very, very successful.
Thank you so much, Sophie. That's great.
Yes.
Great story and inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you everybody for watching my video. I left the link to my YouTube for, if you want to watch it again or get some ideas. Watermelon did excellent. My cantaloupe is actually still producing, so I'm going to see how long it lasts. So I'm very well fed this year, I promise.
That's great, and we hope to see you again next year.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Let's continue then, and let's look now at the best large landscape and best of show. And this year, we are honored to select Holt Mitchell. Holt was selected as the winner in 2 of the categories, and we are so excited that he's with us today, I believe. Holt, are you here with us today?
Yes, hi Sheila.
Great. So congratulations, Holt. We are glad to see, and let's look at your pictures, and we can understand why the judges liked your landscape so much. Let's go ahead and present those pictures first. There we go. We can almost smell the beautiful flowers. That was a real profusion of floral displays, Holt.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a minute and share anything with us about your cake?
I'll be glad to talk about it. I ended up being at home more with COVID. And then unfortunately, I ended up having some health issues and ended up with blood clots in both my legs at 26. So I kind of need some things to do around here. So I followed the Save Dallas Water Facebook page, and they were talking about a company called Rooted In, who Daniel and Patrick presented earlier. So I followed their Facebook page, and they started virtual classes. So I started watching the virtual classes. They had a rain barrel one. So I watched how to do that, and I ended up buying one of their rain barrels that they sell. And so I installed that, Googled the base. It was 8 cinder blocks, 4 pavers. So it was actually really simple to put together and do. And it's been great to water all the plants. The plants I got also from Rooted In, from their plant box. They do in the fall, the pollinator pack. So it included 24 plants ranging from Monarda Klein, the bee balm, salvia, from cedar sedge all the way to Turk's cap. So I really enjoyed planting it, starting a new garden in the back, and it's just been beautiful to look at. Every plant blooms at different times, and you know, some will bloom in the spring, and then some midsummer, and then some start in fall.
Thank you very much, Holt, for sharing.
Thank you for selecting me as Best in Show.
I believe there may be a question for you. Let me look quickly here. Yes, do you use soaker hoses?
No, not currently in the bed. I'm hoping to convert it to drip line eventually, but as of right now, it's just on sprayers on my sprinkler system.
Okay. And how many barrels, rain barrels do you have?
I do have one for now. I was looking at a second one on doing on the side because I have the way the gutter flows. I mean, I need a second one because it's just gushing water all the time. But right now it's just one. It's addicting though.
Well, it's awesome. You mentioned how you've been following SafeDallasWater.com and that it inspired you to work on your garden, on your landscape, and start applying all these saving water tips. We truly appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's continue. Let me see here. I think it's time for the fan favorite. And for this one, we have selected Jean McIntosh for her dedication to her beautiful landscape and this tour. She has been part of it for over 15 years. And it's people like Jean who make this tour so special. Jean's a devoted landscaper. She's devoted to her landscape and does the work herself, caring for it all the way around her lovely home. And hopefully we can visit Jane's home, maybe next year in person. So I want to congratulate all the winners and thank you so much for the time that you took in working in your gardens and sharing with us. And that's what makes this program so worthwhile. Not sure if Jean McIntosh is with us. I don't think I saw her, but if she is and she wants to share something with us, this is the time. But if not, let's go.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I'm here.
Oh, you're here.
I'm here.
Thank you. Did you want to share something with us about your garden?
Well, sure. I actually did not start to be a water-wise gardener. I started to try not to have to mow a lawn. And in the process, it was the trees that actually directed what happened to the yard because they got big. And I had a TIF lawn. I had 4,000 square feet of TIF lawn, which, as you all know, are the very thirsty lawn. And so I had the lawn removed and replaced it with hardscape and with liriope and various other ground covers. And that was in the year 2002. And in the year 2003, which is the first year that I had no grass at all, I saved 146,000 gallons of water. And that has continued to this day. And then in 2012, the trees did me another nasty and started interfering with my sprinkler system. And so I had that converted to drip. And so for the last, 10 years, I have had no lawn and I have had drip irrigation and I've had great success.
Wow, Jean, thank you for sharing your experience. That is awesome, how much water you have saved. And I really hope that everybody that is listening, your story becomes a path for them to also get into it.
Well, Sheila, it's not just the water that was saved. I've saved labor. I've saved fertilizer. I have saved, the only thing that has that I'm spending more money on now is that I do put down about 40 bags of mulch every year. But otherwise, the labor saving is enormous because I'm not mowing and I'm not putting lots of chemicals into the ground. And so I really think it's a good deal for everybody.
Absolutely, Jane. This is an inspiration. I hope that everybody listening will embrace it the way you have had.
Yes, I do have photos, but I think you've got them. There's somebody that said, did I have any photos?
Let's check with our technical group if there are any pictures from Jean's area. Please let me know.
Hello, this is the voice from the cloud. We'll have them on savedallaswater.com after this program. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, remember to visit our savedallaswater.com. Jean is a testimony, and Holt was a testimony to all the good things that we have in the website. Let's get Katie back, and she will share a little bit more about the survey, and she's going to be closing. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much, Sheila, and a huge congratulations to all of the winners. I'm so inspired by what we saw in your landscapes and your gardens, and the kitchen garden made me hungry. So I guess it's getting close to lunch. So we're going to wrap things up. So we're going to conclude our program today with a very brief survey. Please go ahead and visit the link on your screen. I believe we'll also put that link in the chat so it's clickable. If you take the survey before 2 o'clock today, so within the next 2 hours, you have a chance to get a free 1-gallon plant and a bag of compost if you're a Dallas resident. So those plants and compost will be available at 4 locations, which should be listed on your screen or will be listed on the screen momentarily. And the questions in the survey are easy, and you'll love the plant that you get as a thank you, whether it's the Texas Lantana, our Turk's Cap, or White Gara. Pollinators love them. They stand tall in the sun, and best of all, they don't need much water. So as I mentioned earlier in the program, we also have something for those of you who don't live in Dallas. So if you don't live in Dallas, please send us an email at greendallas@cityhall.com, and I'm sorry, greendallas@dallascityhall.com, and we'll send you a token of our appreciation. And if you please include your address if you so choose, so we can get that over to you. I want to thank again our special guests. I want to congratulate once more the winners of the 27th year of this program. 27 years we've been doing this program. And I want to thank every one of you for participating with us today. Thank you for all of your questions, and thank you to our esteemed panelists for participating. We do hope that in the future we can return to our traditional format of on-site tours and presentations. But either way, we can't wait to see you again. And as we've said over and over, please don't forget to visit savedallaswater.com for helpful programs, tips, and events to help us save Dallas water. And with that, I'm going to send you all off to enjoy this gorgeous day. And this concludes our program. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone.